All right. So yeah, our vision is that we want to make sure downtown San Carlos is heart of San Carlos City, and it provides a vibrant, pedestrian-friendly, safe, charming, futuristic, and accessible destination for the community. It is a place for celebration and gathering that offers diverse and authentic experiences through a draw of food, retail, services, art, and music in a visually attractive environment for the growing community. And downtown is an inclusive place with easy access for all opportunities for housing and businesses of all types, and inviting spaces for all users. And downtown San Carlos is a sustainable district with landscape that supports ecological and community health and well-being. So this vision we summarized into four guiding principles, which includes downtown vibrancy, placemaking and identity, mobility and connectivity, and an overarching theme of equity and resiliency across all these three principles. And to translate that into the physical space design, we do have this slide where we are talking about the transformation of 700 block into a pedestrian plaza. And as explained in the previous presentation, we have two options for the pedestrian plaza. First is the concept of creating a promenade, and second is creating series of gardens within 700 block, especially between Olive Street and Cherry Street on Laurel. So I would just pause here, and we have a question for you to have your feedback. Which program or design ideas included in this particular idea or concept would you like to see in downtown San Carlos? And if there is anything that is missing, and if you need for us to consider, you can comment on some of those ideas and activities as well. So I'll just pause here. I'll zoom this in for the promenade concept. And my note taker is Sajuti, and she will be typing all the comments that you are reporting and your feedback.
This is David Flagori.
Hi, David.
Hi. I hadn't thought about the tree sort of grove idea down the middle, but seeing what you guys have come up with, some of these ideas, I really like that. That's kind of like really attractive, and adding a bunch of green there and shade and interest down the middle as opposed to just one long straight alley. Breaking it up like that to me is a really attractive idea.
As I mentioned a few minutes ago, with a 2-year-old, it would definitely be great to have some like kid-friendly stuff along Laurel Street. The current Harrington Park is kind of like dark and damp, and there's just not a lot of good kid activity or infrastructure there for when like we want to go down there as a family. That would be definitely like that kind of kid-oriented and youth-oriented program would be something our family would be interested in.
Both good comments. Just to summarize, so David's point was the shade factor that has been introduced in these intermittent stages along the corridor is something which was preferred. And Aaron, to your point, like wherever you see the play icon here, these are the areas where some sort of child-friendly activities we are trying to introduce to make this space inclusive of all ages, especially here, along the park, near the water fountain, some child-friendly activities have been introduced. But point is noted, some programs within that which where children can play, recreate could be introduced along the promenade.
And Rohit, are we commenting on just the promenade concept right now?
Yeah, so we have boards dedicated to different topics. So for this board, we are commenting on the promenade concept, but if you have anything that goes in line with what we are discussing, please feel free to share.
This is David again. I like Aaron's idea about the kids
Mhm.
stations in the promenade. Little play areas here and there scattered about. The families can kind of hang out with the kids. That would be wonderful.
I like, our kids just two, right? But I see lots of comments in like on Nextdoor about how like there's no longer anything for like teenagers to do. So if there was, stuff that engaged youth, from a youth of all ages and like even just
Mhm.
the heart, um, I think that might help create that kind of inclusive environment where people want to come hang out.
Mhm.
You could put a boba tea kiosk in the middle of the promenade. Teenagers would love that.
This lounging area, yeah.
Good
This is
point.
Neil Lundy. And, you know, as much as I'd like a vent lawn right there by the stage, I don't think it gets enough sun. There's a current lawn there on path that goes down the middle, and
Mhm.
there isn't enough sun to even have that lawn. It's mostly dirt now.
Mhm.
And, with the buildings on both sides, I just don't think you're going to get it there.
Mhm.
So to have a real lawn, I don't think that would work. And so I
Mhm.
think maybe move the lawn out towards the plaza more and making
Mhm.
maybe a water feature in there or something. But again, I don't think you want a water feature without sun either. So
Right.
Yeah,
and then,
I think
and then with the shade trees along the promenade, you got to be careful because too much shade, it gets cold.
Mhm.
And we're super hot all the time.
Mhm.
So I think I'd cut back on the amount of trees just so there are those spots to sit in the sun, absorb that sun.
Mhm.
And it's also to have so many trees, you have lots of leaves and that sort of thing. So I'd be really curious to see what kind of trees those are
Mhm.
and make sure they don't get aphids like the current problem we have.
Mhm.
So um, and then I'm not sure what the surface would be either. It really doesn't go into the surface of the street from
Mhm.
building to building, but I've heard things about using stone and rock, and you have to be really careful about having a porous stone that doesn't clean
Mhm.
well. So because you want it to look new, sort of like Disneyland every day, if somebody
Mhm.
can come in and clean it. Um, so just some things to consider.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And we are going to be giving in detail thought about the surface treatment. This part at the moment, we are finalizing the broader concept, and then we will get into the detailing part of it. But those comments are really helpful, so keep them coming.
Neil, you said it better than I did. That the current lawn space, it just doesn't get enough sun to be a lawn. It's dark and damp in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you're exactly right on. If there is going to be a thing that is a lawn, it should be moved out where it gets more sun. Um, and agree to be careful on not having too much shade because very quickly it'll start to feel cold there all the time.
Yeah, I can, if we are done with this board, I can move to the next one. I think some of the comments will continue here as well because they were pretty, relatable to this concept as well, whether it's a surface treatment, whether it's the lawn, whether it's the trees and their density, whether it's the children's play area or, activities for youth, etc. But anything else that in this concept, because here, as it was explained, we are trying to break that formality of promenade and introduce these pockets. We call them the gardens along the plaza to create a meandering sort of walking experience, which is within the green zones, which can also act as a cooling zones when it's really hot. So if any other comments you have on this concept, please feel free to share.
Does the city have the funds to pay for all of this?
That's a good question. I can certainly note this down, but the city has, we have Sajuti here from the city. Sajuti, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we finalize the specific plan, it'll be done in phases. Currently, we do not have the funds, but it'll be considered through both. If folks like private businesses want to make improvements, then they can kind of contribute to some of those funds, or it'll be a capital fund included in our budget. So that'll be kind of the next phase once we figure out what exactly will happen. But we can get you more information on that.
That would be good. My brother and I own one of the buildings in the 700 block. And as it's been very hard on our 20-year retail tenant who's a fixture downtown. And so we were, quite against this. His revenues have been so low that, we have in turn accepted like half of the market rent for the property. Some people are getting hurt by it, but it's really heartening to see all the thought and planning that's gone into this. If there are public funds available for it, that's really nice. But some people are going to suffer from it. I'm also concerned for the people that live on Elm Street. For the character of that street to turn into a thoroughfare. I'm a little worried for them and their property values. No, that's just a couple. I mean, it looks like a beautiful thing that you're doing. But I do have a few concerns.
Sure. So we noted those down, and you have some really good inputs. And we are going to discussing the circulation slide, so we can talk about the Elm Street at that point. But to come back to your first comment about the phasing, so one of the exercises what we will be doing once the design is finalized is to phase out the development within the downtown and even on the plaza. So like Sajuti mentioned, different aspects could be, there will be a timeline for implementation of the design, and for example, planting trees could be the first phase, and creating the gardens in this particular concept, if this gets picked up, that could be the first phase. Second could be creating the curb and surface treatment on the street. So we can phase out the development to achieve the vision. And I'm glad you pointed that out for us also to again consider. We have noted that comment. Anything else on this concept? If you like any aspects or anything else that you want us to consider.
Well, this one does have less trees, which is good, but the trees right in the front of the event plaza, I think I would do away with. Just down a little bit. Right in the front of the event plaza, there's like 3 trees there. Again, those would be blocking the sun coming from the south, so to speak. So again, I think I'd like it more sunny, but this one does have less trees than the promenade
concept.
So, yeah. So I think this one would go better as far as that. And it's sort of nice to wander through on both sides, but I just worry about, I guess there's still a sidewalk on both sides, and then there'll be a sidewalk down the middle. Is that how I see it?
So this is curbless, so everything is a pedestrian kind of zone. So yeah, there is no distinguishing factor between what is sidewalk and what is thoroughfare, because the entire thing is planned as a plaza.
There are labeled pedestrian walkways on each side where the sidewalk would typically be.
Oh yeah, those are dedicated as pedestrian walkways, but the movement inside is also pedestrian. So yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the garden concept, in part because of what Neil was mentioning. You get kind of like cooler, shadier areas and warmer, sunnier areas naturally. And I also like, more unstructured spaces more. So I'm naturally lean towards a garden concept. And then it also creates some like nice natural division between areas where you could have, like just like how in Burton Park, for example, there's like a 2 to 5 playground, a 5 playground, etc. So it kind of gives some natural division to have like different areas serving different functions.
Got it. So multi-purpose areas, and we're gonna get to that as well. But just to summarize this, we did discuss about phasing part. We did discuss about the placement of the trees. We did discuss about some the walkway demarcations, and we did discuss about areas for everyone, is including flexible use or multi-purpose areas to be considered in this point. And one thing which I wanted to highlight was we included some amenities like water fountain, restrooms, because if we are creating such a plaza space, the basic bare minimum what we have to provide are these restrooms and water fountains, along with other interesting uses that we are proposing. So those amenities have been factored in the planning. Now I'll move. Sorry.
Glad to hear that Sue's the expert here. So it's great that she commented, and I'm going to defer to her every time here. But look, the garden concept looks better, I think, because of the difference in the types of things. It makes it seem less like an alleyway. So like that. Question is, have the local businesses there that are affected been consulted? When you do something like this, clearly there's different frontage and different frontings than for different businesses. Some are open, some are not. There's a long history, again, Sue's gonna be the expert here, long history of San Carlos on Laurel Street with a problem with trees because it blocks the signs of the merchants. And I think they've complained about that for many years. So it's something you're gonna have to be aware of. The other one would be, is there going to be an adoption of standards for the areas that the restaurants and the businesses are going to occupy in this plaza? Because today, Laurel Street, let's face it, it looks bad. When you compare it to other cities, those orange barriers and just the mixture of just random, completely random mixture of parklets and whatever the hell they are, looks terrible. So some kind of adoption of standards is going to be a necessity if you're going to make this thing work and look at all okay. And then you get to the equality for the other businesses. So if this is being done for restaurants here, it certainly creates an unfair advantage for them versus those in the 600 block, 500 block, 400 block, 300 block. I don't know if that's up to the business owners to deal with, if it's up to the folks like Sue that own the real estate, but would the city be charging people in this area for maintenance for their areas? Sue, you've lived this, sounds like, for many, many years. So there's a lot of things that you guys are going to have to get into that are going to affect this. I would also, last point, agree on Elm Street. Using that as a thoroughfare is just, I think, a pipe dream. That street is not designed for that. It chokes today with just two-way traffic because there are cars parked on the streets. To create that as a thoroughfare is a dream. Choking down El Camino, again, I would advise you to take a drive through Menlo Park almost any time of day. And where it chokes from 3 to 2, it is a traffic difficult situation, shall we say. So lots of things here that you guys are gonna have to work through that are gonna make devils in the details, but there's a lot of things that just throwing up some barriers and converting it to a plaza is going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot more than that.
Great points, Vince. I've noted those down. We did discuss about Elm. We did discuss about El Camino here. And
Right.
yes, we are talking about Plaza, but the way why we are looking at the entire network is because we want to make sure that whatever that is happening in this little part is in consideration of all regional movements, city level movements, and access to other areas. Because all these streets are cutting through our project area, but they are giving access to the regional connectivity.
Right.
So we did factor in that, and your points about Elm, both yours and Sue's points about Elm are very well noted, and we will consider those when we are talking about mobility and connections.
Yeah, I assume there's a business study here. Again, Sue's made the point that her tenant has seen a drop. Now, clearly that was due to pandemic things, but I don't think in the retail space it's come back. Sue knows better than anyone. And in the restaurants downtown during the week, they're deserted from a daytime perspective. So again, the challenge is San Carlos doesn't have a business, and a business culture around the downtown that empties people into it at lunch. So I'm hoping you guys are doing some business studies here, some traffic studies as far as people goes, that today's modern city is designed with more of a mixture of residential, business, and retail combined in its downtown to drive that kind of activity. San Carlos wasn't done that way. It's filling in on the edges. The residential has been now created across El Camino next to tracks, and somewhat in the project over on Elm. The businesses I don't think are there at all. Samtrans I think is gone pretty much. So you don't have business traffic that empties into this space in the daytime to support these. So I don't know how
Great
more of a
points.
longer term planning to try and create business spaces that would feed into this. That's a long-term project, obviously.
No, great points. And one thing we didn't discuss in detail during the presentation, we do have economics consultants focusing on the study of businesses.
Okay,
and we are studying the tree, and we are studying, various comparable communities. We Burlingame, Boulder, Colorado, Mountain View, who these communities have followed similar approach of converting a certain segment of their main street into a pedestrian street. So what kind of businesses are benefiting out of it, and how they are, and how in spite of conversion of the pedestrian plaza of their street, they are able to achieve economic vitality, and diversity of businesses are still functioning. And if something is not functioning, then why is it not functioning? So both pros and cons of these different cases we are studying, and then we will be coming up with a business model for the businesses, or ideal mix of businesses to make sure that the plaza as well as businesses are thriving with this move, and we are not neglecting any of those businesses.
Okay, that sounds great. Appreciate you listening.
Yeah, a lot of points, Vince. Can be interesting a little bit more like detail on if you have any insight on the kind of business and why the has been for them. In terms of what the business consultants are looking at, there's a lot of life sciences towers and office towers going up in the surrounding areas. So maybe there are ways you can look at how you get that traffic coming down to Laurel for lunch, for example, to Vince's point.
That's a great point. That all that development's going on somewhat away from this plaza. So that needs to be taken into account. That's a great, how do you get that to mix together somehow?
And in the next 10 years, that's thousands of office workers that are potential, lunchtime customers for Laurel Street, for example.
Yeah, those are great points. So so you're talking about the east side. So we have the east side vision plan. We have the northeast area plan. So those plans are kind of considering the connection between the downtown and the east side. So I think we'll move on to the next board, because we will be reporting out very soon back to the main group.
Also, I forgot to mention, so one of you will have to summarize our discussion and report, and we will have 2 minutes in the next session to, report back. So you can nominate somebody now as we speak, either Vince, Sue, because I see both of you.
I nominate Vince.
No, I'm saying Sue. Sue has a vested Thank you.
No. Vince, I've moved out of the area 20 years ago plus, so it's
So,
and I was so blown away by how many restaurants are down there. This plan is so well suited for restaurants. I
Right.
worry about the retail people.
You're 100% right. Yeah, and people that have those businesses, to your point, the parking has to now be behind in the alleys and such. They're the ones that are getting impacted the most, I think.
Yeah, the parking is just terrible, and we can't take away any more parking, in my opinion, unless we have another plan. And maybe, you're talking about bringing people from the west side. I know Burlingame has a trolley that goes to all the hotels, and it's like every hour, I think. It goes to all hotels sort of on the east side of the freeway there, and takes them to downtown and back, and just keeps on going and going. And I have a lot of friends that stay in those hotels. They hop on the trolley to go to dinner and that sort of thing over in Burlingame. It's really convenient. And we might want to consider something like that just for these high-tech workers where they're at. I don't know. It might be worth a try anyway.
Sure. Point noted. And I will hop onto this scenarios because here we would like your inputs. And we did discuss about this option of Elm not being, favored as an arterial street. But we do have other options where we are talking about swing lanes, especially on Holly and Elm. So because we have peak hours, and in our transportation analysis, we realized we did figure out what those peak hours in the current movement pattern are. So maybe in the morning peak, we can have Holly Street in one direction, and in the evening street in the other direction, considering the flow of the traffic. That could be one option for us to consider, especially when this is becoming pedestrian street. It will be in line with our vision, which is to create downtown as a pedestrian-friendly, urban environment, while also considering the traffic movement, because traffic movement will still be happening, but how both things can be, working in harmony. So this was one option, and other one was to create a one-way loop.
Our breakout room's about to close here.
Yes.
Kind of an overarching comment on all of these plans. I live in San Carlos and I work in San Carlos, and I drive through this thing every day twice. And none of this fixes the problem, which is the intersection of Holly and Old County, because that holds up traffic. So you can't, even this like one-way loop, option 3B, I'm a hard pass on that because the traffic builds up trying to get through under the train there. So until you fix that, like literally adding another lane or a swing lane there or changing that light, there's no way. None of this resolves that.
Noted. Yeah, I think we will be done in a couple seconds. So I will see you in